What's up, everyone? This is Galem here, one of the co-hosts for the Tech Sales Experience.
And it is Robert Crayton, the other host of the Tech Sales Experience. And before we dive into this week's episode, want to make sure to remind you all to, if you really enjoy this podcast, if you love Galem and I, go ahead and like, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast listening platform or YouTube.
And not only if you enjoy our conversations, but if you really like our guests and what they're sharing in these episodes, they're also members of our community on JobSki. So go ahead and join this community and you will get direct access to both of us, as well as all the guests on this podcast. And it's a really, really good way to connect with other people, to build your network, and to get more questions answered as they might pop up in some of our conversations.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Don't meet us there. Beat us there. Come join us in our virtual community where you can book one-on-ones with the great folks that we have on our podcast. You can chat with Galem and I, and you can be up to date on the different events we'll be having. Who knows? We might have a crowdsourced podcast recording with just the people from our community. So you want to be in this virtual community. It's free. Go ahead and sign up and enjoy this week's episode. What's going on?
Hi. The special guest is arriving very shortly. We're going to have a very dramatic entrance here, but I'm excited.
Oh, it's all good. Who we got coming today?
We have Gabrielle Blackwell, aka GB.
Oh, GB.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
I know.
This show is about to get all-time ratings.
Exactly. Highest one. 100%. How are you today?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm doing good. Just, up and at it early, trying to, make things happen.
Always.
How about
well,
yourself?
here she is, the queen.
What's going on? We got double G and we got GB in the same room. Like it's a lot of G's going on. I like
a lot of G's only.
Exactly.
Sorry, you got to go, Robert.
I gotta go. Oh damn. Well, I'm just honored to be in y'all's presence for real. How y'all doing today? How you doing, GB?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I can't complain. Life's good. I wasn't expecting y'all to be in the same room. I thought we was gonna have three. I'm gonna have to figure out my my editing stuff, but this is good.
Listen, we know you're up for the challenge.
Exactly.
So it'll be good.
Always up for the challenge. Always.
Well, we did a session today with the SDRs at user testing, and we brought it right back. So we're currently doing a hybrid model where sometimes we choose to be in different places, having our own laptops, the per usual. And then this one, we were like, let's do it together.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we got a hooper in the house. We got. I have a question to kick this off. I mean, Galem, I don't know if you've been watching, but this past weekend was the women's NCAA championship.
True.
And GB, I would love to get
it. Yeah, I've been telling her a lot. I've been telling her a lot about what's happening.
I'm up to speed now.
let's fill in the audience. I would love to get your take on this, GB. Like, what are your just general thoughts on the game, and then we'll get into the whole.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So I did not watch the game itself, the championship game, because I was in London and the game aired at 2:00 in the morning our time. So I did I saw some highlights for sure. I saw who won. I saw lots of commentary on a very specific hand gesture from our Bayou Barbie, Angel Reese. And yeah, so I've been paying more so attention to the commentary about her gesture and the commentary that does not exist, although Caitlin Clark made the same hand gesture, but one game right before that.
Okay. So I feel people, I mean, first of all, this is actually my first time watching, the women's championship, and I don't know what I've been missing in life because
I was gonna say welcome to the party.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here because that was a hell of a game.
Yes.
Like that was some high level basketball. That was a hell of a game. I was like watching it in my yard. My neighbors was like, "What?" I'm screaming, like
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely good. I was definitely going for LSU.
Same.
Same.
Same. I need to go and actually watch the game because again, I only saw the highlights. I haven't paid as much attention to I think like any kind of high level elite sports stuff in a long time. However, I started playing basketball in 6th grade. And I think when I was starting, I also got really into women's basketball. And so like UConn was my favorite team. That's when you had Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird playing. There's other people on that team that I can't remember, but like Gino Ariamo, I'm Ariamo. I'm messing up his name right now, and that's so sad.
It's all good.
But yes, great coach. So like I started paying attention to them. Fun fact, one of the folks on my team played at South Carolina, I think in one of their championship teams too. So she had been keeping me up to speed on like what was going on this season. So yeah.
Okay. And those, so for the listeners and viewers that aren't tuned in, like there's been a lot of backlash because the star player of Iowa had done some gestures. She's definitely got a competitive spirit. And you know, Angel.
She was praised for it. She was praised
for it. She was praised for it. It was like, it was almost like people were celebrating her competitive spirit. And Reese on LSU, who's a Black woman, as they were closing out the game, she kind of did the same gesture back to her. And now there's like backlash that's unsportsmanlike and unclassy. And so this is the talk of the town. And, you know, Galem, we talked about this. It's like how as Black professionals, it's hard for us to do the same things that our peers from other races can do. And so this is that, but in the sports world, right?
Yes. Just general statements. I was scrolling through stuff like ever since Sunday, or I guess my yesterday, right? Waking up in the morning, seeing it was interesting to see like, all right, LSU wins, and there's more conversation about Angel Reese's like perceived class or not, right?
Yep.
And I was also like this afternoon I was heading back to Galem's place and I saw something on Instagram, and it's like Jill Biden invites both teams. So like if you win a national championship, only the national championship team goes to the White House and meets the president and takes pictures. And so I think Jill put on Dr. Biden goes up on Twitter and is like, "Oh, I'm going to talk to Joe and see if we can invite them both because they played such a good game." And I was like, number one, didn't LSU just spank them? Like at the end of the like, if I looked at the scores, I was like, that to me is a spanking. First of all,
Caitlin had a good game.
Caitlin had a great game. But when does she not? Like I think she's had over like 90 games of at least 10 points, right? So I mean, she's I mean, like Kim Mulvey had said it, like she's a generational player. She's been called a transcendent player as well. So like there's absolutely there's nothing you can say about Caitlin Clark. Like there's like other than good stuff, honestly. But I'm reading this art. I think I was reading the article. I think it was a CNN article where it's like in trying to appease both teams, Dr. Biden may have disrespected both. And so at the end of the article, I think I screenshotted it, but it was talking about just women in general. And I'm sure you can say this for like any like underrepresented minority, right? Quote unquote. Is that like people don't want pity, they want parity, right? So I think like that to me is like as a headline statement, like forever and always. And then I think when you bring it to like race specifically and talking about Black professionals, I don't know, Galem and I have been having conversations, and I'm at a level of confidence in like I literally just don't really care what anybody thinks. I'm like the Dennis Rodman of SAS, I think, right? Like that's the mindset that I had. And I think that's the mindset that someone like an Angel Reese has, where I'm like, it doesn't matter if you like them or not. It doesn't really matter what opinion you have of them or not. Like they're winners.
Yeah.
Period. Right. And they're really not doing, and Reese didn't do anything bad whatsoever. She made a gesture, get over it. Right. And she's been on a campaign of like, hey, everyone's been calling me ghetto and classless and all these other things all season long. So like, what makes you think that she's going to change when she gets to a national championship?
Right.
So I think I also said this to Gilliam of like, I don't know. I'm at this point now where, and granted, there's a lot of things that like there was a lot of work that had to be done and a lot of things that I, you know, like there was a journey of building that confidence. But I'm at this level now where I'm like, I'm very comfortable in who I am, very comfortable in whatever that means. And when I'm going through an interview process, like people know exactly who they're going to get. So when they're surprised, I'm like, that's on you. Like, I'm not the one with the problem.
Yeah.
I showed you exactly who I was when I was going through this interview process. I'm being very consistent. Like, this is my character. This is not for show. And if you have a problem with my personality, that's a you problem. Right. So if you want to make that a me problem, don't worry. I will take care of that for you so that I will not be a problem for you. And it will be your loss that I've left. So, I don't know. I'm just not like, again, and it might be a journey for people to get to that level, of course, but I don't know. I'm just like, I really just don't care what people think.
That's a beautiful thing. I think both things exist in the same space though, right? I think unfortunately we have to, like, you're GB. Let's get it straight out here. Let's get it straight for the listeners and the viewers who we have on the show. Like, you are an incredible, like in the world of SaaS and tech sales and all this world that we operate in, you are like, you're not like the Dennis Rodman. You're like an MJ. You're like a greatest of all time, right? And so,
Thank you.
And I mean, it's just the facts. I mean,
yeah.
And
listen, MJ once upon a time got cut from a basketball team. Okay, like, let it be known. I think it could be really easy to look at somebody who has this perception of like making it, right? Yeah. And you go, oh, well, you can do that because you're this. And I'm like, listen, I started in the same place as everybody else did. Yeah. Right. Like, I definitely had my licks along the way of like trying to appease other people. Trying to be a people pleaser and trying to be like, or thinking that I could never say no, or sticking around in places that I had no business being in, and being around people who were never going to like be advocates or sponsors of me or fans, anything like that. Like, they didn't want to see me win. And I just go, those are not my places.
Yeah, those are not your people.
Those are not my people. It's not my place, not my space, not my people. So I think like it in part, and so me choosing myself despite whatever fear or uncertainty I had about a situation, but me just like putting, like, I'm going, oh, okay, like for me, like I was GB before anybody called me GB, right? Like I think that's the way to go of it. Like, where I had to just think to myself, okay, I'm in this place where I feel like I have to be much smaller, and I personally can't handle that. Like, I've become just sick. Like it takes a huge toll on me mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. So I was like, that's too high a cost to pay. Like, if it costs me your peace, it's too expensive. So I was like, I'm not paying that. Like, that's a cost I'm not willing to pay. Yeah. I'm going to continue to choose myself, like whatever it means, even if it means letting people down, whatever, because I'd rather let other people down than myself. And so over time, it's like, okay, cool. Like, you choose yourself and you demonstrate a confidence in yourself that may or may not make sense, but you do it anyways. And then over time, you start to realize like, wow, like 4 or 5 years later, like, shit, I'm so happy that I chose myself. Like, I started to choose myself, and I had a discipline. I was disciplined in choosing myself, because me, like, you know, pre 2018, like, it was like kind of like a small fragment of who I am today. And even then I was like, oh, I think I'm doing well. But like, compared to where I'm at now, I'm like, whew, so much nicer just to be myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't trying to discredit. I'm sure I know you had your journey. And
oh no, I didn't take it as such. I just wanted to like say that, because no, like, you're not the only person who said that. It's because you're like, oh, well, it's easy for you to say.
No, I'm not even saying it's easy for you to say. It's not easy for you to say. It's not easy. I understand. I can, I can imagine the journey that you've gone through. And actually, you told me the journey like years ago. Like, so I kind of know the journey a little bit. And so I by no means is it easy. But what I'm saying is that just society in general, they with these kind of double standards that they put on Black people, that they put on women, it's like we have to be great in order to get that same respect. And so
I'm just over it. I'm over that talk track. I really am. Like, you know, I mean, the whole thing, oh, hey, you have to be 2 times better, 3 times better. Like, you talk in any kind of like, I think, high level or high performance environment, whether it's in sports or in some just any professional space.
Okay.
And I remember being in the training room in college, like in the athletic training room, like getting all my prep work done before volleyball practice. And I'm talking to one of the freshman players who's on the football team, Black guy. And we were having this conversation. He's like, yeah, I have to be like 2-3 times better. And I'm like, I'm so tired of that. Like,
yeah,
I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I mean, I think it can be true. I don't want to say like you don't have to. I think I had to change my relationship up with that, because what ended up happening is I'd go into every single place with the exact same mindset that I needed to be 3 times better than everybody else, because otherwise I would be overlooked. Right now, there comes a time, there are some times, it's not every single space. There are some times where you land in a place that's like, you don't need to be 3 times as good because you're Black. They will just say, you are just 3 times as good, and we're going to treat you as such because you're 3 times as good. Like, to me, there's a nuance to it. So you're not like, hey, you need to be that much better as a Black person to overdo, like to be at the same level as a white person. And this is why I like sales, right? Is like the numbers don't lie.
I can't agree with that. I just
I'm
can't.
I'm not
because at the end, like bias is real.
I know. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm not saying that people are. I'm not saying that that's the rule for everything. So what I'm saying is, what like the first experience that I had as an SDR, right, just in sales in general, I came in and I was like, I want to crush it. And it wasn't because I'm like, oh, I'm Black. It wasn't that. It was just more like, I want, like, this is my first foray into something. I'm also choosing myself. Like, it was like a family thing. My family wanted me to do something totally different. They were not supportive of me making my own decisions at that time. And so for me, it wasn't that I needed to be good because I was the only Black person, or I had to show out because I was a Black person. It was like, I need to show out because I need everyone in my family to go, whatever, I'm gonna swear, fuck off. So, and I need to do it like very definitively and forcefully. And so there was this like drive that I had to just be like absolutely phenomenal, just to like almost like prove it to myself that I made the right decision. And so I went there, and I was like, and I was never like, what I appreciated about that environment that I was in, and I had really great leaders, like it's incredibly important, is they were just like ultra supportive. Like, I'm never going to say that like race never played anything, but I was like, I didn't have to have any conversations about it. I was treated like a top performer because I was the top performer, period. Right. Like, I got recognition at all points. I got special opportunities. I was flown out to conferences when no one else was. I was like given opportunities to increase my scope of work. And I was also given, they also increased my variable as well, like my earning potential along the way. Cause they're like, if we don't treat you right, you will leave us. You're too good for that. Right. And even when I said like, hey, listen, if I don't feel like I'm getting what I need, like, how would you respond to that? And they're like, we would try and figure it out for you, or how to keep you here. Or like, if we could not meet your needs, and my boss was like, I'll support you. Right. Like, I'll help you like with your resume. I'll be a referral for you, or a reference call for you. I'll write recommendations, like whatever you need, I'm there for you.
That's amazing support.
Amazing. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not, this is why I say like, it's like, so I'm saying, if I come into with the mindset of like, oh, I'm Black, so therefore fill in the blank, to me, the trap is, if you're in an environment where it doesn't matter, you might be putting like unnecessary stress on yourself. And then the other side of it is, and then if you are in an environment where it does play a part, you might overcompensate. And you're like, okay, like I just got to be 3 times as better because, and then they'll whatever. But the thing is, they're never going to see you as better. Doesn't matter how hard you work. Doesn't matter what your sales results are. So that's why I say, like, for me, I kind of had to change my relationship with that, like 3 times as hard narrative, and just go, I'm just like built different. And I'm just going to I'm competitive and I want to get better, and I'm very goal driven, and I have my own things that motivate me. And I'm going to get the work done. And if I'm in an environment that does not approach me as such and does not give me the respect, they can kindly sit and spin and go somewhere else.
I love that. First of all, I love the mindset. I actually think we have a similar mindset.
Yes. Yeah.
Here's the analogy. Going back to the Michael Jordan thing. Michael Jordan finished his career being arguably the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point in history where he probably couldn't even play basketball in the NBA. So that's the point that I'm just trying to make, is that bias is real. And I agree. Sales is one of those careers, which is why I love sales, where your numbers do speak for you. Your work ethic does speak for you. But that still doesn't take away the fact that there's bias. Even getting to that point for some people is very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's all. And that's all I'm just trying to say. That's the point that I'm just trying to say is like,
oh yeah, I mean, bias is everywhere. Shit, I got biases. We all
yeah,
do. We all do. Yeah.
I got biases too. We all have
biases. Yeah.
I got biases. But we're speaking about this whole Angel Reese thing. So I was just like, but this is incredible. I think I mean, I don't want to hog the interview, but y'all been spending time together. So I feel like I got these questions from TV, But
I have all the time for the rest of the week, so I can ask all the questions.
It's only Tuesday.
Early in the week so far.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would love to. Now I feel like this is an interview where I'm just interviewing you. But the purpose of this podcast, we like to keep it real. We like to talk about the tech sales experience and just have a good time, be our authentic selves. One thing that I've really enjoyed, kind of as a spectator, I just love how you've built your career. And obviously, I don't know all the ins and outs, but every time I see you post on like LinkedIn and the thoughtful type of content, your consistency. You can tell your mindset. You're very much like it's just a talented professional, right? Just trying to give you some flowers here.
I receive them.
You receive? Okay. So one question that I have for you is like,
the flowers right there.
Hey,
I got them.
There you go. All right. One question I have for you is like, what do you feel have been the key drivers what have been the drivers for you in finding success in your career so far? I know that's a broad question, but what's like the first few things that come to mind for you?
I think there's a mindset / like an attitude. There's a vision. And I think and then maybe this goes back to mindset, but there's like an openness to adjusting where needed. So when I think of like mindset and attitude, if we kind of call back to, I was starting off as an SDR, I'm like making a self-possessed choice. First, like one of the first times in my life at like 24 years old, my family's absolutely revolting against me. Love them, but at that time we were not evolved as a species in the Blackwell world. And so I went in with it and I call it a fuck you mindset. I definitely like people are like, oh, you have a chip on your shoulder. I'm like, I 1,000% do. So that's never left. Like it showed up. I think it used to drive me so hard that it started to become like a warped relationship. And so now I feel like it's something where it's not like, oh, fuck you and somebody else needs to lose. It's very much like hey, like it's more like a coaching kind of thing. It's like, it's not working despite people or in spite of them. It's very much working because I'm like, hey, like I'm very curious about what I'm capable of. I forgot what I said for the second thing. Oh, there's a vision. There we go. So I think for me, there's also a vision that I have that like drives, like it's like I'm driving towards something. So I think that's like what spurs on the motivation, the drive that influences the work ethic and the discipline. So and I say that I always have a super clear why, but when I started off as an SDR, I was like, even before that, I was looking at different roles, like totally, I was thinking about going into the HR side of things. So it's comical now that I work at a company that sells HR tech, but I was thinking about HR and people ops. I could not get past a phone screen with a recruiter to save my life. And so after, just like kind of after so many like interviews where it just goes nowhere and so many applications submitted and I get no response, I was just like, I'm approaching this the wrong way. So I think I'm gonna hit on the second and third point of like the drive, the vision, and then the openness to like change things up and pivot where necessary. So for me, I was like, I'm not being successful in what I'm trying to do. So like, what is it about my approach that's off here? So I thought I took a moment and I was so broke at that time. I was so poor. I was so poor. I would go into Barnes and Noble and I would like steal like self-help books and business books so that I could like go and study how I can get my life in order. Straight up. Like I was so broke. I don't know that I've ever said that out loud to anybody, but yeah. So, or I'd go into a bookstore and I would literally like, I only had 10 minutes. So I would just take pictures of the chapter that I wanted to read later.
Yeah.
So I would go into the bookstores.
That was me in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like couldn't afford any books.
Couldn't afford anything. Couldn't afford it. I had negative 427 euros
You're doing
in my
that
bank account because I was coming back from Paris, France, where I was living at the time. But I just started to like study like, okay, I'm like trying to figure out like, what am I going to do to make money? And I was thinking about the HR people side of things. And I was like, honestly, I'm just looking for a job right now. And so maybe that's the wrong way to approach it for me. So I'm like, I think what I really need to do is think about what is the career that I'm building. So when I thought about like, okay, let me just like speed up ahead and see myself and I'm in this position that I really like and work is fulfilling and whatever, like what am I doing? And I was like, I can't choose one thing. I'm nosy about everything. So I was like, who gets to be the nosiest person in the company? I was like, a CEO. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be a CEO. And then I was like, okay, where do CEOs start their careers off in? I was like, well, it's finance or sales. And I was like, I don't want to be in a spreadsheet. I'm going to go sales. And then I thought about what kind of company I wanted to work at and like what was going to help me be the most fulfilled at work. So really what ended up happening was I had a really clear like why this company, and like that's how I sold myself initially. But so I think about that kind of stuff of like 20 years from now I'm going to be super fulfilled with my life and like what role does work play within that, and then what does that mean for me, and like where am I going to be the most successful, and like if I made a bet at this company over here and I'm in for a year and then I come to find out like, all right, there's a bunch of empty promises. I'm still bought into my vision nonetheless. Right. So I'm willing. I've kind of got this idea of like anything I put my mind to, I'll get it done. If I'm in an environment where I'm not getting it done, that's the environment. That's not me. If I put myself in the right place, I'm going to go get there. And if anyone gets in my way or tries to stall me, fuck them.
I mean,
so that's my three-step GBism.
Starting at the vision.
GBism. Backwards. I love it.
Yeah. It's the mindset that like the mentality, right? There's the vision, and then I think that afterwards it's like it's just honestly it's a commitment. It's the commitment to the like choosing the vision, even when even if it's easier to like choose just the moment. Yeah.
Galem?
Yeah, well, no, it makes me actually go back to thinking about basketball. I used to play basketball too growing up.
Nice.
And then early on in school was fun times, but
buckets. Yeah.
I had only the opportunities to really play because we didn't have enough players on the team at the time. So that's how it started. And the coaches were like a bit unsure about me. I was the new girl on the team. They're like, can she do this? We don't know enough yet. We've seen her practice a few times. I show up on my first game and I made an incredible amount of points, the highest scoring points in that game. And they were like, what? But that's the whole point here. It's that like, if you don't really get or put yourself in the positions to get the opportunities, you're never going to be able to show what you can bring to that team or to that company. But it also starts with, you have to have that clear path. And then you have to have what we talked about earlier, have the buy-in and the support from people. The coaches, they need to believe in you, right?
Yeah.
Like you as a manager have to have also that vision, not just for yourself, but for the people that you're supporting, right? To put them in a position where they can perform.
Yeah.
Like we just talked about this today. GB came into the SDR team and talking about like what people should focusing on, because a lot of people are asking like, hey, what should I do when it comes to prospecting? You're like, where should I put my efforts into? And this is a typical like tech sales experience question. What do I do? Where do I start? Right?
What channels
What channels do I use? Which
Yeah.
one do you recommend? And I've said this too from an enablement perspective, like I can't force you to do something that you're not good at or comfortable with. Same thing like when I was in school and my professor was telling me, you have to do this finance course. I'm like, I understand it isn't a requirement for me to graduate, but I don't have to be at the top of class for that course. I don't, because I suck at finance and I'm never going to like want to do that and succeed in finance in particular.
Not motivated to, yeah.
I'm not motivated to whatsoever. And we talked about this too the other day. Like you can outsource shit. Like if you're not good at it, just let someone else do it. Okay, an SDR can't outsource their stuff, but the whole point was like focus on the things that you're really good at. Focus on the things that you're great at. Like if you're great at social selling, do social selling first and make that your bread and butter, and then start sprinkling in the other things that matter, because you have to have multiple approaches to prospecting, right? Can't just stick with one thing and say, this is it. This is all I'm ever going to do. It's like, well, depends again, where do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think it's like the growth mindset aspect of things. Because during the conversation that we had with the team, so like one of the questions was, what prospecting channel is like netting the most results? And my answer is always all of them. Right. So it's always all of them. And then you can, of course, you can optimize to your strengths. But I was saying, I got introduced to the concept of one concept of like strengths that I really appreciated from a prior coach that I used to work with. And so she had shared like you kind of have three categories of strengths. You've got your superpowers, you've got like your kind of just regular powers, like that, whatever you can develop. And then you have your developing ones after that. So like your superpowers, it might come to you instinctually or instinctively, or even like automatically, like you're so good at it, you don't really have to think about it. Then there are like the ones that are in the middle, just like regular powers. Like these are things that you're probably average at, you're solid. And of course you can develop them into superpowers, but you're just solid at them. Right. And then they have the ones that are developing. And these are the ones that it might take you some time. It might take 3 months, 6 months to get to that next stage. Like it's not as instinctive, right, as some of the other things. So I don't think you ever go, hey, like I'm good at, there's 10 things I can be good at, and I've got these 2 superpowers. The end, right? Like you're like, cool, I've got these 2 superpowers, right? Now, how do I get a third one, right? Like, hey, like I've got 2 superpowers, I've got 5 regular powers. And then whatever the left, I'm not good at math. Then you got the other stuff, right? So it's like, like how can I get one of my regular powers to my superpower? So you have to constantly be thinking about like, again, what are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? What is the skill set that I have available to me right now? Right? What's the skill set that I need to develop to get myself to that next level, and then invest in that?
Facts. It kind of makes me think of jack of all trade, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one type thing. Like,
ooh, I like that one. I mean, sometimes you don't need to be a master at, like, I know some serious one-trick ponies. You know what happens? They move to a different environment and they completely fail.
Right. And I also think diversity is so important. And it's not just diversity. I think jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes master of better than a master of one, to me makes me think about how having a diverse skill set, a diverse area of thought is actually will allow you to be better at any given thing. Like the fact that I'm just going to use myself as an example, like the fact that I'm into, construction or like building things, as a passion, right? That helps me in sales, right? Well, it's just how I think about approaching a problem. How I might think about building a relationship with a prospect. So I think it's very important to have these diverse skill sets and be able to, like as you were saying, turn those weaknesses into like mediocre strengths, like middle of the line.
No, I mean, really, like working with this coach, it was really helpful. So we went through the strengths assessment, and it was all proprietary, right? Through hashtag better up, like them a lot. And then so it's like, hey, like, yeah, like let's go through, here are your superpowers are yours. But then so what we do is like, hey, like I had identified, here are my goals, like here's my vision, here are my goals, here's my next best step. And then what we did was like, once I kind of had my goals written down, she's like, okay, goal number one, looking at your, like, let's look at your superpowers. Which one of these is going to help you accomplish that goal? Great, wonderful. Now, like, let's go to the next category. And it's like, is there anything here that's going to help you with your goals? And that became part of our development work, right? Was, all right, cool. You've got 75% of what you need already available to you right this very second to accomplish your 3-month goal. Wonderful. Now let's create a plan to bridge that other, like that 25% gap. So if it was, and so, but there's also this piece of like setting expectations. So it's like, hey, I got this goal and I want to get it done in 3 months time. And if I have like the skills that I need to develop will only take me 2 weeks to get there. It's like, great, wonderful. Right. But then if you've got this other stuff where you're like, hey, I want to accomplish this goal and I want to do it in 3 months, but it's going to take you 6 months to develop. You go, pause. We need to rejigger this thing right around, and or like kind of redefine what success looks like. So, or go to a really intensive class, right? And like speed up the learning process. But I think it was really, to me, it was really helpful in trying to figure out like, okay, like where am I at today? What do I need to have that I don't have today, like in order to become the person that I want to have or to have the opportunities that I want to have? And then let me create a slightly unreasonable smart plan to get there. Yeah.
No, it's so important to set goals, smart goals. I have a question for you, GB. This is more so a philosophical question.
Uh-oh. We love it.
I mean, well, okay. So like we spoke about vision. I'm curious, and if you don't feel comfortable, it's okay. But like, what is your vision for your career? Like when you 30, 40 years from now, whenever, like when you're about to retire or whatever, like what do you hope to have accomplished in your career? And then also secondarily, what is your vision for things that are, do you have a vision for something that's bigger than yourself also? Like, do you have a vision for the world, for your community, like for the sales industry? Like, do you have a vision for something there as well? So for you,
I think so. I'm gonna be very, very honest. I do not have this big vision for myself for work. I really don't. So there was a nuance that I made earlier on where I was like, when I started off in sales, I created this vision for myself that only included having a fulfilling work life. Never talked about a fulfilling life in general, outside of work. And then I got absolutely and completely just drowned in work. Like I'll be honest, I suffered. I suffered in work because I didn't have anything outside of work. Like, so when I started in sales, I was 24. That's when I created that vision. And so last year, I'm pretty sure it was before my 30s. So I'm 32 now. So it's before my birthday, sometime at 31 years old. I actually sat down and I thought about 20 years from now, right? Because I was like, okay, like when I'm 52 years old, I am I'm living this life full of meaning, right? Like that's the way I was like, I'm living this really meaningful life. And I asked myself the question, like what has happened like between now and then that has led to this meaningful life, right? And there wasn't a lot about like work for work's sake. It was more like there's an experience of wealth that I want to have. And I'm not talking about wealth necessarily just in terms of dollar signs in a bank account or value. It was more like I'm the daughter of a single mother who is a recovered workaholic. And I mean that very literally, like no sarcasm to it whatsoever. And so I was like thinking about what would be the things that would have been really meaningful for me, that like when I'm a mom, like for me, like my big vision for myself is to be a really great mom, if I'm being super honest. So for me, I was like, all right, well, for me, wealth means being able to go to all the practices and the rehearsals and being involved in my kid's life, and like being able to have dinner as a family, like a lot of the experiences that I didn't have growing up. So like, and then for work to support that lifestyle for me. So I'm like, does that mean that I have to amass a certain level of like, quote unquote, like material success? Absolutely. But that's not the end all. It doesn't stop there, right? That's not the end all be all. It's more so like a means to an end. So I think in the past I saw these examples of success where people are just like hammering away at work like all the time. Or I mean, I've seen it where you have people who are like incredibly successful economically, but then, you know, you go and see them at Christmas dinner and everyone's gathered at the table and they're in the other room working, right? So I'm like, that's a life that I was like, that has zero meaning for me. That's devoid of meaning. And that's going to make me sick as a person. And with my attitude, the world doesn't need that kind of monster around. So that's really what I think about. I'm sure there's like some bigger meaning that I can have for community and things like that. But I'm like, I think I used to have this mindset of like, I'm going to go out there and change the world. And I ended up putting way more pressure on myself than I needed to have. So I'm a big proponent of the like be the change that you wish to see in the world. So like whatever it is that you're wanting to see in the world, give that to yourself first. Right. So it's then I'm like, all right, if I'm practicing that, then, and I get really good at it, then I could probably, I see this all the time with my reps. Like maybe they're experiencing a very like human like challenge, and I'm not there to meet them necessarily as the person who's checking the dashboard. I'm there to be like, all right, seems like you're having this very human centered experience. Let me meet you with a human centered approach, right? And maybe there's a way to think about this as not like a work issue, but more like a person issue. So I guess in that way, I'm hoping that the example of leadership that I show is something that permeates. That's not like that's just something I want to do in general, that I said that I will do in general. So like it permeates in the places like that are local to me. But I think there's the ripple effect of, I've been managing for 5 years now. I've had many people that I've managed, some better than others. Thanks for all the ones that bore with me those first few years. But I think the idea is, all right, if I'm demonstrating what I believe is a more conscious demonstration of leadership and a higher standard of leadership, then the people that I've had the opportunity to partner with, support, right, as my reps, that will be their baseline expectation. So they're not going to go to bullshit people ever again, right? Like, or ever, right? It's because they'll just have such a high standard of leadership. So they'll know like, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this. You have enough people not tolerating nonsense, right? Like I think nonsense starts to get weeded out.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're hitting it from both angles. I mean, you're hitting it from the bottom up, like as you were saying, like leading by example, showing the people that you manage what good management looks like. And not only like so that they're able to pick their next manager, but likely the people that you manage will be managers. Some of them will be managers one day. And so you set that expectation. It's like these are your kids almost. These are your management kids. Like one day you're gonna be a management grandma, and they're and like
what did you call yourself?
The fairy black god manager.
Yes, that's it.
That's my TikTok handle.
Okay. Well, hey, follow GB on TikTok. Oh, and like and subscribe to this on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
And also, so I was saying you were kind of bottoms up approach with the management, but you were also giving back to other managers through the one-on-one.
Yes.
So is that what you are trying to, is this the game? Is this the insight? Is this the leadership that you
game? It's a good analogy because with the one-on-one, yes.
Hey, look at me. Like, okay, but not for real. Is this the what you're trying to like inspire other leaders to do with this newsletter?
Yeah. So maybe I'm a great podcast guest. I'm not gonna, throw, but I'll be honest with y'all. Like, there's sometimes that I don't think that hard about what I'm doing. Like, I think one of the best ways to learn is to teach other people.
Mhm.
So I can't say like, oh, I'm out here trying to inspire them. Like, that's not necessarily the thought all the
Yeah.
way. The way I had actually written it down of that, like, part of the things that I wanted to do work wise was like share out content, because I'm like, I've been learning so much. And for whatever reason, again, I've been managing for 5 years, so there's a certain point in time where I go like, listen, I got to keep on developing and growing. Like, the opportunity to do that in terms of like a material promotion, like, that hasn't presented itself yet. So I'm like, how do I continue to up my game? And it's been sharing out content. And I thought about, okay, like, what could I do that I feel good about, that I can continually write about? And I think when I started to really invest in, or when I started to ask myself the question of like, how can I get better as a manager, right? Like, I really started to ask myself that question in 2021. And I was like, who can I learn from? And I got mentors, and I'm reading all the books and doing all this stuff. And what I started to realize was like, yo, I'm a management nerd. Like, I just thoroughly enjoy this shit. I love learning about it. Like, I love to learn. Like, one of my top 5 strengths, Clifton strengths, is a learner. So, like, I was like, I'm just having fun, honestly. Like, if people bet, like, I'd say if I'm having, it's like the Ikaiji. Like, have you seen the Ikaiji or whatever thing? It's like a Japanese concept where it's like, you do what you love, you do what makes money, you give, and you do like what the world needs. And if you are able to get on that, like, that's gold. So I feel like that's what I get to do. I'm like, I'm a nerd out on this stuff anyways, and I'm going to try and learn about it. If I'm teaching and I'm learning at the same time, like, this is great.
Well, I also think like the ingredient that I see coming from you, looking at content, what you put out there, is all of that, but it's driven by passion for the subject.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right. So like, I think that's like, might sound so obvious. Like, yes, of course it's passion, but
Yeah,
people might not recognize that. You have to put the effort on things that you are passionate about. Otherwise, you're just going to go in motion, and at some point it would just drop off. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I don't nerd out on prospecting. I really don't.
Right.
Like, I was like, you're like, oh, I want you to come in and talk about prospecting. I'm like, go talk to Morgan. Go talk to Morgan Ingram. Like, he's a prospecting guy, right? Like, if you want to talk like leadership management, right? I can talk all day about that because I got a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
That are,
but also a lot of experiences.
I was going to say the strong opinions come from, like, there's experience, yes, 1,000%, but also like a lot of study too, right? Like, I was like, all right, Kevin Dorsey's a mentor of mine, right? And if you ever want one of the most hard-nosed people who just get up your ass and tell you that you need to get better, get Kate. Like, Katie is your person. So like, I think I've had these people around me who like have there are of course people who encourage me a lot, but there's also people who challenge me, who are like, in a helpful way, never in like a detrimental or berating or degrading kind of way, but it's like, I think when you get to like, hey, I believe this and I have conviction, right? That to me is where it's like, this is an amazing, like, I do my best work then, right? So like, if I don't, because passion can wane, right? But I'm like, hey, I have a strong conviction in this thing. Like, if we want better people, we need better leaders, right? Like, that's number one. Or if we want, or like, hey, companies want their, companies are saying, hey, we want our company to be more diverse, and we're going to like recruit into the SDR organization, the AE organization, and SMB and commercial. And I'm like, your managers don't know what to do with Black people. Shut up. Like, your managers are not the business. So it's not to say that they can't be that. Like, if your managers are not adaptable and they don't know like the real fundamentals of what it means to lead a person, then no wonder your diverse hires are not doing well. It has nothing to do with like, these people can't be successful. It has everything to do with they don't have the people who actually know how to set them up for success.
Yeah. They might be able to attract them, but not retain them.
So they can't even attract them. The brand, the company, the money, and the job be attracting people. But I'll say this too: a lot of these managers are managers; they're not leaders. We even talked about this game a couple episodes ago that a lot of managers or leaders, they have their own like heat coming down from, you know, the executives or whatnot, their managers, right? And so the manager thing to do is to mitigate risk as much as possible. And oftentimes managers don't come from backgrounds of historically marginalized groups. So their way of kind of mitigating risk is hiring people that look like them, that they trust, that they know. And those are not leadership capabilities to me. I think a leadership is someone that can manage somebody who doesn't look like them, or a leader is somebody that can see the light in someone, see the greatness of someone and pull it out. And a lot of these managers are just trying to find people to make their job easier.
I mean, so
That's what I think.
I'm a manager, right? And I realize I'm probably not being associated with the way that you're defining a manager.
No, definitely not.
Manager should not be a dirty word. Like managers.
No.
I know you're not saying this, but a lot of people would, right? Like they're like, you know, people don't leave companies; they leave managers. Yeah. I'm like, who the fuck hired the manager though? Who? So I will say this, right? Like, so I have very strong opinion. It's feelings. I have very strong feelings.
I love managers, by the way. Managers have done nothing but great for me in my career, but
because here's my thought is this, like shit rolls downhill. And of course you can have, like, to me, there's times where like, you have senior leadership who is putting pressure on a manager, right? That's a no-win situation for anyone. And like, to me, there are types of like, so it's leadership or management styles. So you can, like, I've definitely been in an organization where, like, as a manager, my manager and we butt heads, right? Where, because I'm like, hey, I've got my team, we're performing, I have proximity to these people, and then they're thinking about everybody in terms of a spreadsheet, right? So like the way I think about the imagery that pops up for me is like, I kind of have to like put an umbrella up. So like it's like my boss is the fucking storm. And so I now have to be the umbrella, the cover for my team. But if I'm not getting support, though, that I wear out. And I have
that umbrella goes start to cave in, like when it start the
there was one time I had a manager and I was like, this is not even a rainstorm, like this is like an arrow, this is a spear storm. Like, I'm like, so I was like, I can't, oops, I just told on myself, but they're over here like literally just like raining arrow storms on me, like at the moment in time that we fix it, just comes in and blows it all up. So you know, there are some things that it's not just like the managers, like you have to look at the entire organization itself and go, what is the culture of this organization? And because you start to ask the question is, how is it that, let's say, because if you have this one, same like an SDR team, if you've got one bad apple on the team, it wrecks the team, right? So you have to think about it like this, of what is it about this organization where they say, here's a bad apple manager and we're okay with it. Like, what is it about what, like, so in I was talking to my grandfather many moons ago, and I was telling him about this terrible boss that I had, and he's like, you know, the problem is, Gab, and so my grandfather worked at IBM from the late 60s, like, so he was he was like started off so he started off as a systems engineer, moved over into sales, very good at his job, very successful, and ended up moving up into like a direct, like he had like a like hundreds of people rolling up into him, right? So very senior in the organization. So he's there for 20 years before he went off and started his own career. So he is in my opinion, like he is a people leader. Everybody loves him, drove high performance, held people accountable, all those things. And so I talked to him about stuff, and he's like, you know what, Gab, honestly, he's like, there are people who really believe that you have to treat people like dogs to get the best out of them. Right. So like, I don't think that like bad managers don't like show up. It's a matter of like, that's probably the only model that they know. And so unless people see a different model or challenge another model, like I've had people, like I had situations where I was basically instructed, like I was expected as a manager to treat my people like shit. Like I would like, it's like, if I straight up, like for real. And it's like, hey, if I went in and I completely like just disregarded my team, I was recognized, I was celebrated for it, right? Which didn't go very well whatsoever, right? So what ended up happening was like, I had to choose him as a manager to go, I really don't care about this person, right? And what they say. I believe that my team can be successful. And even when my team was, and I took like a very like engagement centered approach, I was working with a coach. I was working with the HR person. I even got like a motivational speaker to come in and everything. The entire time, my manager was lambasting me, telling me I didn't know how to do my job when my team hit 100% of their number consecutively for months, never been done in the segment. He was still trying to tell me like, oh, no one's going to understand why. Like, I hear you talking, but I don't, like, you straight up gaslighting me the entire time. So I think we do have to start, like, yes, there's managers, but there's so much. This is the one I talk about that shit in the 101. Okay. So
hey, again, subscribe to the 101, people.
subscribe to it. Because here's the truth is the average age of a first-time manager is 30 years old.
Yeah, I read
The
this.
average age of the first time someone gets management training is 42 years old.
So
right?
Huge gap.
It's a huge gap. So people are out here just absolutely wilding for 12 years.
Facts.
Yeah.
Traumatizing people, right? Like, sure, there are some bad apples. I'm sure there are, but I really don't think the majority of people wake up in the morning going, how can I ruin someone's day today? Right? I just don't think they know anything better.
Well, I do think there are some people with intentions.
Oh, yes. I said majority of people. I said majority.
Yeah, I said some people with intentions, and it's hard to tell. But I do think that, like you said, it's just they're making mistakes. But one thing I wanted to kind of just to switch gears a little bit here. One thing I wanted to learn about is so the one-on-one. I would love to know from this is just more so the entrepreneur in me. Can you tell us a little bit about like how this came to be, and then also what's the difference? Because from my understanding, the one-on-one is within the umbrella of work week. So what's the difference between doing the newsletter through that versus like setting up a MailChimp and saying, hey, subscribe? What are the differences there?
So how it came to be, I manifested the work week experience. I'm going to be honest. Write down your goals and write down exactly how you're going to get there and what comprises it. So like when I was writing down my vision, right, and I was like, all right, I literally made an Airtable base of like, hey, here's this life of meaning, and here are like the 12 values, right, that I have. So it's like passion was in there. Wealth was in there, family was in there, partnership was in there, right? Like all that fun stuff. And so in each one of those things, I was like, there are certain quote unquote assets, right? That are represented in each one of these values. So when I thought about passion, I thought that all this stuff was in passion. So I was like, all right, passion for me was really centered around content. So I'm like, okay, it could be a blog, a newsletter, right? And I just kind of thought about all these different kind of products that would support this passion value that I had. So I had this in an Airtable base, and then I was in San Francisco. We were supposed to meet up, and we did. I'm sorry. I was very overwhelmed. And so I was at this, like, I was in San Francisco because LinkedIn flew me in, which is awesome. And so LinkedIn had a pop-up cafe party thing like next to Dreamforce. So I went to that, and someone had asked me like, hey, like, what are you trying to do next? Right? Like, when you think about where you want to go, what's your vision? And fun fact, I had it all documented. So I was like, had my iPad. So I was like, hold on, let me connect my iPad to my hotspot on my phone. I literally pulled, I got a cocktail or whatever, and I just pulled up like, hey, here are the things I want to create. And the person I was talking to is one of the folks at Work Week. So he saw a blog and newsletter, and he's like, I can help you out with these two things right now.
Amazing.
Right? So like, I think I said this to the SDRs, right, at Galem's work, but I was like, hey, you need to make sure that when an opportunity presents itself that you're the best person for it. And here it was like, where it's like, hey, someone asked me something I've learned. Like, if someone's like, you go to an event, someone's like, hey, how can I help you? Like, have all those questions answered. So when someone asks you the question, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? What's next for you? How can I help you? You have a response.
I always say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Hell yeah.
And if you do that, then you're making it so much easier, and it's so much easier to keep track of where you're going and why you're going in that direction. Right? Otherwise, people will start telling you, this is at least not in my experience, but I know of other people who have had this as maybe part of their childhood or growing up, where they've had significant people in their lives, like typically their parents, telling them, this is what I need you to do.
Yeah.
And this is when I need you to do it. like go to college, do this course. Like I went to school with someone who went to business school with me, but she really wanted to be in arts. Like that was her thing. And I asked her, I was like, why aren't you doing that then? Because she always came late to these classes because she was doing something artsy on the side. And I was like, and I vibed with her. I was like, what's going on? Like, I know you're always a little late. Like, what's happening? She's like, yeah, I really like this art thing. And I was like, oh, that's great. What are you going to do next? She's like, I really want to study at the school in Switzerland, but I can't do it because my parents won't fund me if I go that route.
Yeah.
And this is like the issue I think that some people are having, is that they're being directed to something. Or we go back to work, tech sales. A lot of people tend to think, just again from my experience, that they have to go in a certain direction. Once they've completed, let's say they're an SDR, they're like, oh, I have to become a BDR now, and I have to learn how to do outbounding. And after that, I have to become an AE. And after that, I have to become this. Like, that's like what they're being taught or told to do, when there's so many other options of where they could go and direct themselves.
Yeah, I think CB's story is like definitely inspiration. Definitely, like you got to first of all have a vision for your own life, and then secondly, there is no buts. There is no I want to do this, but there is no but. It's either you doing it or you ain't. And
or I want to do it and right.
Yeah.
Like
There's no buts.
Yeah, there's
like that commitment. If you would have had a but, GV, if you would have had a but, you would not like be where you are. You get what I'm saying? Like you'd be like, oh, I want to do this, but like that is not the mindset that's going to get you to where you want to go. You just have to have belief. And that your friend Galem, if rather than saying I want to do this, but I want to go to this one, but if she removed the but, maybe you could help. Maybe some there could be space.
Yeah.
But I guess
or sometimes like, you know, it happens later on. Like it's what I say, and like it's a there doesn't have to be buts, but it's like, okay, like I've definitely lived that life of, you know, my mom wants me to do something, my family sees this thing for me. Like, and I did that, and I felt like I missed out on all, like I reflect a lot on all the opportunities that I missed out on because I was out here trying to live up to somebody else's dream for me.
Yeah.
So, or there was times, it's like, honestly, that's it. Because I'm like, it took me it's like, what's the word when you code switch? There we go. Like hover, like that's it. That's a lot of energy to like be like to have this mask on all the time. It's a lot of energy to carry that mask, and where like that energy could be better directed towards things that, like, if you put in an ounce, right, you're gonna get, I don't know why I'm talking in alcoholic terms or something like that, like, and you're gonna get a handle back, right? But it's like you're gonna get a lot more back, right? Versus like you put so much investment into something, you get nothing back. Like that to me is a big signal of like there's something that's way off here. So I'm gonna need to pivot. And again, I just don't really care what anyone says anymore.
I love it. Okay, I just have one more question for you. I know YOLO. Got one more question for you, GV. This is
Wait, we're not just gonna hang out for the next 2 hours?
No, we're gonna have dinner very soon.
Oh, yeah, I gotta have dinner. Yeah, my day just getting started. So okay. Last question for you. I think that you're also one of the GOATs when it comes to balancing personal brand and professional obligations. You've always kind of had something. You've always had something, you know, outside of that title on LinkedIn, right? And so it's actually a two-part question. I just have to read my question. Hold on. How has having something on the side helped you in your career? But more importantly, it's a three-part question. But okay, the other part of that question is, what value do you think that has added to your employers?
I love this question. I was like, let me see. I actually wrote this down. I actually listen. I have I'm over here pulling up my phone because I had a conversation with someone who I had worked for in the past. They were like 2 levels up for me. And what ended up happening was I wrote it all down. Do you see that? Do you see all these messages? You know, I felt a certain way about it. Okay. So what ended up happening, so I had been working for this person, and at this company, I had been criticized because they said, They basically were like, hey, you are distracted by these other things, and don't want you. So the example was my team was not performing very well. There was a specific reason for it. I needed to get better, of course. There's a lot of changes the organization had made that impeded our ability to be successful as well. We didn't have what we needed to be successful. So that being said, I was like, okay, I know I need to get much better. So I would do coaching on the weekends. And I was like, all right, I'm getting reps. Honestly, I'm like, I'm not waiting to keep messing up with my own reps. I'm going to get more reps with other reps who I don't manage. So I would coach on the weekends. So I think I had that. And I was coaching through like 2 other organizations, and I forgot what else I was doing something else. I forgot what it was though.
That's lost.
Yes. I was like, I'm getting at bats. Like, and I wasn't getting paid for it either. I was like, I'm getting at bats. So I would do like 5 or 6 coaching sessions on the weekend to up my stuff. And so like manager at the time was like, hey, you're distracted. And like, basically if you don't like get your shit together, you're going to be fired, kind of thing. So it was like that. So he's like, yes. So I ended up like dropping all that stuff. I ended up leaving the company as well. But I stayed in contact with my second line leader though. And I was telling him, I was like, hey, listen, like, here's the stuff that I'm doing. It's actually really helpful. And he goes, do you think it impacts your effort? And that was the criticism that I got at the company that I worked for, Matt. And I was like, no, actually, it makes me better. So I was like, yeah, like it impacts effort at work, but in a positive way. Work becomes more like a lab than it feels like work. Because again, I'm not doing the job to collect a paycheck and have the security over streams of income that other income provides. So like the side hustle stuff, like that's not like my main work. It's just for fun. And so what ends up happening is I get to like test shit out, or for the one-on-one, I have opinions about things, right? And so when I go back to work, I get to test out my opinions, like, or like, hey, like I have these opinions, I'm going to test it out at work. And now I'm going to kind of like write research articles on it. There has to be proof to it. I can't just make stuff up. So I'm like, also, I'm just genuinely interested in the subject matter at work, and it helps feed the content aspects. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. So I'm like, yeah, so like to fuel the content, I'm motivated to learn more. I'm also curious about testing and refining. So that means I have to get better at work. So it's not just ideas. So I'm like, it's legit results and observation. So I'm consistently evolving at work and elevating too. So like, if things at work aren't great, I also don't feel as anxious because I have other outlets, right? So I can remain more composed at work too. So I'm like, everything. And then, yes, there's money that I can make off to the side, right? So I'm like, hey, so I straight up told the guys, like, listen, I do this SDR management work for fun. Don't get it twisted. All right. So I was like, so that's how I think about this kind of stuff. Is it very much like everything works together. This idea that I came across, I forgot what it's called. It was called the book that I read, but it's called project stacking. But it's like you have like all these different projects, and you want to find a way to like not go, all right, I'm going to put 25% over here, 10% over here. It's, you want to reverse it, right? And so like all the projects stack up all together. So when you do one thing, it impacts the 5 projects that you want to do. Right. So like, that's the way I think about it. It's more so the biggest challenge is you want to figure out what are like your main job and your side, quote unquote, side hustle stuff. For me, the question is, how do I have it in a way where everything kind of has a through current, versus there's this totally disparate thing over here, this totally disparate thing over here, and I'm trying to figure out how do I spread my energy. It's more like, all right, I want to talk about management, right? Okay, I manage all day long. I learn about management all day long, and now I just get to write about it. I just like reflect on my day.
Sorry, dogs in the back. I don't know if y'all saw, my dog just bought this bowl out of nowhere.
Yeah, we saw it.
She's having the best time.
Wait, you have like a bigger dog, then you have a smaller dog. What's your
I
smaller
have a
dog?
chow chow, and then that's a wiener dog.
I have a wiener dog. A long-haired black one like that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Did the dachshund bring the bowl?
No, the chow bought the bowl.
Oh, okay. I was like, listen, my dog Luna, I have two mini dachshunds, long-haired. Luna will straight up, she'll like have the bowl, and then she'll put her paw and smack it down so that it just goes flying all over the place, and then she barks at me.
Oh, she having hella fun. I like
Yes.
that. But no,
Living her
but
best life.
GB, well, first of all, I'm kind of surprised that a leader wouldn't be able to recognize the benefits. I think, you know, I think the main reason salespeople get burnt out, in my opinion, is because either they work for a toxic ass culture or their identity is too tied up into their day job. And so,
Yeah, or maybe some mixture of both. Yeah.
or both.
Honestly, I think it has more so to do with like a lot of people who are in leadership or management positions. Ooh, this is going to be a great one for the one-on-one. You have a lot of people who I think are very insecure in their role.
Yeah.
And so maybe because it's 12 years before they get training on how to do their actual job, right? And it's just the blind leading the blind. So I think that there are people who are very well intentioned, but then what ends up happening is they get into these environments where they're stretched past their level of competency and capabilities, and then or like they don't see things for themselves. So like if they have a limited perception of themselves and they haven't gotten to a level of awareness about that and acceptance around it, and maybe they don't have a growth mindset, then they're going to go, who are you? Like, if I can't do it, you certainly can't do it. And I'm like, bitch, shut up.
That's what I'm saying. That's problematic. But anyway, that's problematic. But
yeah, so listen, I
no,
got a whole thing of like,
that's
I listened to the SDRs earlier today because they're like, what do you do if like how would you approach an SDR if they're not doing well? And I'm going to say the same. It's for anybody who's not doing well, performance wise. It's probably going to come down to three things. Like they don't, either one, like they don't have the skills or the competencies. They are insecure and they need validation and affirmation, right? Or it's like they're just not willing or they're never going to be able to do the job. So like, yeah.
A company not wanting their people to have side things is like
Huge red flag.
It's like dating. It's like dating somebody, and you doing some stuff you're doing some stuff, but you're like, no, but I don't want you, like, because I think
isn't that usually how it goes? It's like,
that's
oh,
exactly how it is.
oh, I don't want you hanging out with so and so, and I don't want you doing this because like you're gonna cheat, and the whole time you find out that they've been sleeping with like everybody and their mother afterwards.
They've been recruiting somebody this whole time to replace you.
Yeah,
hold on, what? I can't.
No, 100%. Come to find out, they've been moonlighting at 3 other companies. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. Yeah.
So I think there's that aspect too, just from speaking to the people, staying woke out here in these streets. We also, it's also like, I think, because this is like kind of a new thing for salespeople. I think engineers do this. I think if you ask any software,
engineers outsource their own job to other people. Yeah, that's a real thing.
No, I know.
No, that's a real thing. Or they got like 3-4 jobs at the same time. You've seen the memes, right? Where they're like, yo, homeboy in the coffee shop has 4 screens up doing 4 different jobs.
Yeah.
No, I've heard of salespeople. Like if they had a meetings booked goal for the week, like AEs, they would just outsource sales development out to other people. And then, I was like, that's entrepreneurial. We should be supporting this.
You really should be.
But you got to want people who are entrepreneur like this. Yeah. Listen, we could keep on going talking, but, this gets to a whole new, like, what do you like if you are different strokes for different folks, right? But there are some people who, like, as a manager, like, you have to be honest with yourself. If you do not want somebody to come up with their own ideas and to think for themselves, like, if you just want order takers, don't hire people who are not order takers. So so like for me, I'm like, if someone's like, hey, GB, tell me exactly what to do every single day, I'm irritated, right? Like, I want to have the entrepreneurial people on my team. I'm like, because you want to own your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But I've got some people where they're like, oh, wait a minute, GB, you got like a mind of your own? What? I'm like, where have you been?
This has been incredible. I know y'all got to get dinner soon, but Galem, we should do this. We should have like a manager's digest. We should have a leadership managers episode like once a quarter or something, contingent on GB's time and availability. But,
yes, we can talk shit. I'm excited.
Yeah, we can basically do a recap of all the on the one-on-ones that you've done in that time period. Like, we can just kind of have a digest.
I'm
and
down
I can pick
for
your
it.
brain. I can learn from you. So
Okay, cool.
We learn a lot from you. Thank you, GB.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Galen for setting this up. Galen's a superstar that knows everybody. I'm just out here just riding the coattails, you know. So thank you, Galen. Thank you.
Anytime. It's been real. It's awesome having you here. It's so great to meet in person.
Yes.
You know, it's a vibe.
Yay.
It's
The
a vibe.
vibe.
And, you know, we manifested this too. I'm just going to leave this on an extra high note because when we did a webinar maybe 2 years ago, we were like, one day it's going to be like a whole thing, GB and GG. Remember? And here it is.
If y'all doing the podcast, just make sure y'all throwing the RC in
Legacy
there.
defined. Yes.
Add RC in there. You know, I got the E. I can fit in. I can squeeze myself in there. No, I'm just saying. But yes, great episode. Until next time.